G'day fellow creatures of the internet, this is the most must-see Argonian here on YouTube, Bruzo Dragonius. As you can see, that is the Argonian that's featured in this video in the gameplay of Elder Scrolls Online that I'm showing to you at the moment, so that is just me there. I just wanted to do something a lot more different normally to what my videos are about, even though that, yeah, my videos should be revolving around the Elder Scrolls universe instead of just a furry fandom. So instead, I wanted to do a bit of a game review that's of Elder Scrolls Online. Even though that, yes, I was been meaning to do a bit of a gameplay footage of a Let's Play of Morrowind, the extension to Elder Scrolls Online. But the thing about it is that I finished it. So instead, I'm giving you a bit of a review on the newest DLC extension of Elder Scrolls Online called the Clockwork City. Now, the Clockwork City mod predates after the events of Morrowind, when you just save Vivek, which is one out of the 3 tribunal gods that resides up around the city that's named after him, Vivek City, which is on the island of Vardenfell. But this time, you're not in Vardenfell, you are in a whole different world. As you buy the DLC, you end up being summoned, and if you uploaded it, you end up being summoned by this tribunal temple, or the priest of the tribunal temple. So you ended up having to travel back to Mournhold, which is in Deshan, up into the tribunal temple where it's in that very town, and you have to meet up with and talk to this dark elf called Divine Thur, or Divine Thur. I'm not quite sure what the name of the guy is. So you end up talking to him, and apparently he's looking for this artifact somewhere in Tamriel that could lead you into the very realm of Clockwork City. Even though it just turns out as it's this orb-looking thing, as you remember from Morrowind, where you end up on a quest to save Vivek from Barabbas, who is thus working for the Daedric Prince Clavgus Vile. Even though that he told you to meet near the waterfall, near Mournhold, which you end up doing, and it turns out that there is this cave there, this secret cave. You go through it, and you tend to escort Deviant Fur through some sort of a, I'm not quite sure if it's a dwelling or dungeon type thing, I'm not quite sure. But you end up escorting him through this place, where you have to end up fighting dwarven constructs and some other new enemies that are also fabricants, or in other words, those robots. So you end up having to do various puzzles for him, as well as help protecting him from those machines that were trying to attack both you and that guy that you're escorting. You then eventually find this little thingo, this glove thing that you end up having to go in to fight Barabbas. But instead, this glove thing ends up taking you into this other area, which is within Clockwork City, and that would end up taking you out to Clockwork City through this sort of doorway. So you then have to solve more puzzles, and you have to fight off more enemies to protect Divine Furnat. When you end up going out of this area finally to Clockwork City, you would end up having to take him or escort him to the area called the Brass Fortress, which is the actual main, I'm not quite sure if it's a fort or some sort of a main city within Clockwork City. And then you just realize that there's something that isn't seem to be right in that place, because the fact being is that there's a lot of Daedric activity there. You know, that as you progress further into the quest, you would you would seem to find out that even though that you would have thought that you would have met Sotha Seal that was doing this. I'm not quite sure if it's a sermon, but you realise then that it's some sort of an imposter there that's claiming to be Sotha Seal. And there's this one thing that I don't get, and that is that quite oddly enough, Sotha Seal tends to want you to, or its resident, or whoever's working for him, or his disciples, they want him, they want to just turn off all the lights and just get the most dimmest lights that they could possibly find, just replace them. I know that it seems a bit odd at first because I'm not quite sure what's the deal there, but then you found out that it isn't Sotha Seal, but it's actually an imposter or some sort of Daedric influence that's posing to be Sotha Seal. So what do you do then? Well, you go into so many storylines, so many quests, mainly to find out what actually happened to Sotha Seal. Why is Sotha Seal like that? You know, some sort of Daedric influences that doesn't seem as right at Clockwork City. My opinion on it, I just seen it being a bit different to what Elder Scrolls Online normally be about, because it has more of the elements of science fiction, much rather than medieval fantasy or whatever. As I go into this world, I tend to find that it has some steampunk type influences about it because of all the within this environment, all this steam and metallic objects and that, and all this kind of stuff that is just steam powered. So, and not only that, but with the machines themselves, or with these enemies that you fight, I tend to find them a bit more steampunk inspired by that. I've noticed that all the residents within Clockwork City are at least cyborgs, which I find is pretty odd. But you would see that every single thing residing in Clockwork City are almost machines anyway, including the wildlife and the soldiers that you end up fighting and that. You know, outside of it, you know, they're all just robots or fabricants and that. You know, so I kind of get intrigued with that idea, but at the same time, there's some parts of that world that, yeah, I think most of it seems a lot artificial, because you end up having to, there's no plants there, but instead there is some sachets or some bags where you just get the plants from, and everything seems so polluted and all that kind of stuff. I do get the appeal of what they're meaning for Clockwork City to be, like all this machinery and all that kind of stuff. So, cheers to them. I'm not going to complain too much about the gameplay because, well, that's just the gameplay of Elder Scrolls Online in general. I'm not complaining about that because I can't really single out the gameplay of Clockwork City, even though it's just a DLC expansion onto Elder Scrolls Online. I can't do that. But however, I could pretty much tell you that the storyline of it, I tend to, in the area of it, even though that Elder Scrolls have a huge map and a huge world to go and explore, I find that the storyline or the quest line, in order to finish Clockwork City, is a bit too short for my liking. Like, normally, I think that in combined, if I play this Clockwork City app non-stop, I think it would take me at least a day just to go through it. And that means what I mean by non-stop, a day to about a half a day. Even though that, yeah, I do tend to like roleplay within Elder Scrolls Online, and say, for instance, if I play this too long and if it gets dark, I tend to like, you know, go to bed anyway, and just, you know, I do tend to roleplay in that game, and that, you know, like I'm actually there at the, like, playing the game anyway, because, you know. But I'm just getting off the off the subject of the topic a bit. Even though that you can go on and on about it, like, you know, you don't tend to meet the actual Sorcerer Seal, which is actually the god that made Clockwork City, until near the end of the DLC questline. Even though that there's not much to do there, but I really do get the other side quests that you do, where basically, especially for the Crows and that, or to other people, there are some side quests where you just end up having to gather these things. I tend to find them a bit tedious at times, you know, because it's more of repeating every single thing. I mean, every single time, actually. I do get with the side quest of going out to delves and that. As I go into the delves, you know, there's two of them, which is some sewage system east of the Brass Fortress. And you got some sort of a realm or some sort of other world to work where you end up going into some portal, which turns out to be like some sort of, to look like a pond type thing. I know for sure that some enemies are a bit too easy, but some are just too hard, and I know that some of them, including one of those zones, those bosses that you fight within the map that you fight. Yeah, it does require more than one people. Like, you know, you can't face those enemies alone, because, you know, if you can, well, good luck. Well, if you do, good luck. And if you can, I'd absolutely admire you for it. Even especially, there's only one public dungeon quest there, where basically it is pretty much really, really hard. Like in most of these dungeon quests, I just find out this one thing where there's so many enemies that are just getting up onto you, pretty much attacking you, and then you can't even tend to kill off one of those enemies. You know, I have those problems myself, but I do have a mixed feelings of the bosses in that extension. I tend to rate this DLC at around, I think, I'll give it about a 9 out of 10. Just to be generous, probably about a 9 out of 10. That's how much I like it. Plus, with all those, I do also like the mount that you could get alongside with the extension, which is the Kaguti Fabricant, and you get like a pet, which is some sort of a wind-up toy mouse thing. I'm not quite sure if it's Skeeverton type construct or something like that, or Skeeverton Fabricant. But I know for sure that as you go into Clockwork City, you get another non-combat pet, which is some robotic dragonfly thing as well. So this is just end of my review there. So anyway, I'm just going to close this off now, because it's around 17 minutes or something like that. For more awesome content like this, please subscribe to my channel, hit that like button on the description below. And if you are already subscribed to my channel, hit the bell or notification icon onto the channel. Links to my Fur Affinity, Fur Network, Twitter, and my Facebook fan page is down there on the dibbly below. Even though that you can follow me on either one of them, chances are that I'll probably most likely respond if I do my Twitter. If you want to friend me or play, or if you want to game with me, as long as you have a PS4 or whatever, or chat with me through PSN, my gamer tag is Bruzo21. As always, I'm just going to close this over by saying, this is the most must-see and subscribed Argonian on YouTube, Bruzo Dragonians, saying, I love you, you matter, and as always, may the Hiss guide you all. Bye for now.